My name is John, and I'm going to be showing you a bonzai3d demonstration recreation of the Valencia Opera House. This is the architecture here that inspired the project. You can see that it's made up of smooth and flowing shapes rather than the more standard rectilinear design. So we thought this would be a great building to use to do a bonzai3d demonstration to show you how easy it is using NURBS tools to create smooth and flowing shapes. Now what I'm going to do in the demo is build this opera house in the spirit of a massing model. Not going to worry about being accurate, just get something that's very similar. And I'm going to take a short design detour to show you some of the new NURBS tools that became available in version Bonzai 2. Now there's three things I want you to take away from the demonstration. The first one is that Bonzai is very easy to use. It has a modern, easy to use interface like other software, but it does have a robust set of tools that allow you to model very quickly, and as a designer you can use this as a design tool to explore or feel free to experiment with different sorts of designs as you are going through the design process. The second thing is that Bonzai has NURBS. So in addition to all the standard modeling things you can do, you can also work with smooth and flowing shapes using the NURBS tools. The third is that you are creating CAD accurate models as you create models in Bonzai. So these are models that can be exported out to a 3D printer without any third-party software or a lot of troubleshooting. And this is the file that I created and sent off to the Z Corporation to have a print returned. And this is the print itself that was returned, and just a couple photographs of that. This is actually about 7 inches high by about 12 inches by 8 inches here at the base. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into the demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Bonzai. And here I have my file. I've already created a 3D base for my site. It's just a sliver of the site to give myself a sense of scale and orientation in the file. I'm going to go ahead and turn that layer off. There we go. And just start with this small massing model that I have here left. I'm going to start out by drawing an arc. So I'm going to show you the arc tool. And I'm going to draw an arc from here. Maybe end it about there. Like so. And I want to use the revolve tool. What I'm after here is I'm creating a football shape over my massing base. So I need to create a line that I'm going to use to revolve my arc around to create the football shape. Standard revolve tool, many 3D software packages have this, and I'm sure you'll be quite familiar with it. Anytime you draw something in Bonzai, you'll notice that I get these handy arrows that will allow me to further refine my drawing of my shape or line as I am drawing it. In many cases, these are controls that are available to you later on in the process so that you can modify these later as well. One of the ways I like to model in Bonzai is to create an object and then cut away from it and subtract pieces. So I build something that's close to what I want, and then I'll use the cutting tools to cut away. I'm going to use the slice tool, and the slice tool works with lines. I've got a few more arcs here that I've already created so that I can cut up my football. Now the slice tool works with the orientation of the reference plane, so all I have to have are my object, a line, and a reference plane direction in order to make my cuts. Okay, and finally I'll do one here from the side. Now I can simply delete things that I don't want. I don't need these lines anymore. What I'm going to do is build a couple of NURBS surfaces here. So I'm going to take these edges away from this object and use them to build NURBS surfaces. I'm going to go into a little more detail about deriving those lines a little bit later on. First, I'm going to use the loft tool to create a couple of surfaces. Let me go ahead and zoom in here to get my lines. I'm going to create two NURB surfaces. Now, NURB surfaces are like pieces of paper or cloth that exist in 3 dimensions that have control points on them that allow you to control their surface. Let me show you what I mean. Here is my existing control point structure on my NURBs. I can go in here and reduce that to something more manageable so that when I pull on these points, I'm actually shaping and reshaping my NURB surface. Let's move over to the other object here and do the same thing. And I'm using the auto guides here to control my point movement. Okay, so I want to explore some NURBS tools. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and move this object up, and then I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to make a mirrored copy of it. I'm going to do that quite frequently throughout this demonstration, so I've actually left a line here that I'm going to use several times to actually make my copies. Okay, so now I have two NURB surfaces here, and I want to build one that goes in between. So I'm going to go ahead and get my NURBS blend tool, and then I'm going to click on the edges that I would like the surface built. And you can see that Bonzai built the surface between the two that I wanted. And like anything else, here are my control points again. I'm able to synchronize these in the case of a NURBS blend so that I can be assured that whatever I do with one is being done exactly the same magnitude as the other, so that I can get symmetrical designs. So that is the NURBS blend tool. What if we want one NURB sheet? So we have 3 separate NURBS entities here, I guess a good word, and I want to turn them into one. So I'm going to go ahead and get the merge tool and simply merge these together. Now I have one NURB surface with a unified set of controls, and I can manipulate these however I like. So you can see I can very easily create smooth and flowing shapes and really play around or experiment with the design. Well, what else can we do with these two shapes here? Well, also the reshape tools work on NURBS. Let's just try a radial bend and see where that goes. I've selected these objects. Now I can take this bend tool and explore bending this object in 3 dimensions and see what I get. I can also rotate the axis of that bend and explore design capabilities with NURBS, or really any object in Bonzai, or any set of objects. You'll notice I'm doing a couple of objects here at the same time. All I have to do is accept that, and then I have this result, which isn't really what I want. I'm going to back up here and go to the original design. I'm going to fit to the window. Now I want to connect these two NURB surfaces up here, but I don't really want an intervening surface. What do I do in that case? Well, I'm going to go ahead and get the stitch tool out, and I'm going to stitch these two objects together. And now we have one object. It's still paper thin though. How do I make it a 3D object? I want to make a 3D print at the end of all this. What do I do in that case? Well, I'm going to go ahead and get my thicken tool, aptly named thicken tool, and I'm going to zoom in here so that we can actually see what happens when I click on my object. When I click on the object, Bonzai will build me a second surface and build all the sides that are required to make this into a solid. So if I click on this object and I look over here, I see that I have the type of model that I still have is solid. So I'm in great shape for my 3D print. Now I'm going to move on to creating the side shell. I'm going to create some objects here that we can cut away and show you several tools. Here is the fillet tool. And I'm going to round those edges off. And then I'll take this and rotate it. And then I'm going to use my favorite tool for going 3D. It's the reshape tool. I just click on my object and pull that out, and it's now a 3D object. Let me get rid of some of these. Okay, now I'm going to move this up. The great thing about Bonsai's auto guides is you can model more and more directly in perspective rather than going from one orthographic view to another to get things done. You saw me cutting up an object with wires or lines or arcs, but there's another tool called the surface split tool that allows me to take a surface and cut it with an object. And you can see that there, and then I've gone ahead and deleted what I didn't want. Now I've created a few additional cutter blocks in here that I'm going to go ahead and use to cut away from my object. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and move through these. I should mention as I do this demonstration, I'm trying to go very slowly. It doesn't come through in real time through the GoToMeeting on your end. So I'm trying to move very slowly here so that everything is comes through basically on you guys' end. All right, now I need to thicken this shell up as well. So I'll go ahead and get out the thicken tool and click on it. And it creates a thickness for me. Well, let's say I'm not happy with that thickness. What can I do? Well, I can come over and retype in a new thickness dimension in my numeric entry box that I'll find in the tool options. And voila, Bonsai immediately changes that for me from 2 to 3 feet. So I've got a 3-foot side section now. I'm going to show you another great feature that's in Bonsai. It is the isolate objects feature, and that'll basically allow me to get rid of all the other objects in the scene except the one I want. Now I want to show you a couple of tools here. One is the spiral staircase tool, and the other is the solid helix tool. So I'm going to start by dropping a staircase right here on my massing base. I'm going to lock my reference plane and get it out of our way for a moment. You'll see that I have these handy arrows on my staircase, and I can actually use these to modify my stair. Well, let's say that I didn't want to do that, and I wanted to put some other values in. I can go ahead and re-click on my stair and enter in the values that I want. So we can do this very accurately. It's not really necessary to eyeball a stair. You can do that if you want, but since generally designers and architects need very accurate stairs, you can type in the values in the numeric entry box. Let's make this go around 4 times, and I've got my stair. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. It's kind of getting in the way. Now I want to make a balcony or railing that goes along with the stair, and I need to draw that and sweep it along the same path that I have for my stair. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a source shape that I can use to sweep along the length of the stairs. The great thing about the union tools is that they work on 2D objects as well as 3D, so you can use those for drawing. Actually, I wanted to subtract that, so let's go back and do this right. All right, so then I want to sweep it along a helical path, and all I have to do is select the axis I would like to use, and there we have the beginnings of our the beginnings of our balcony railing. I just need to remember the values that I used previously on the staircase, and I can go ahead and type those in over here. And then I can take this and make a modification just to bring it to exactly where I want it to be. All right, so that's it for that part. I'm going to go ahead for now and take these objects and move them off to another layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring back the other objects. Okay, I'm going to fit to the window and back up just a little bit. Now I want to create the remainder of the building that exists between the base and the shell. So I'm going to create a main deck here. Now here is the round tool again. I want to show you a little bit more in depth how this works because it's really neat. I can just do a corner if I want, or if I select a segment, it'll round the two corners it finds attached to that segment, or I can simply select the object and it'll round all four corners at the same time. Maybe I want to change this, and like anything, I can look over in the tool options and find my numeric entry and control numerically what is happening with my model. Let's go 3D using the reshape tool. Whoops, I don't want the dashboard. Oh, okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this directly up to about there. Okay, now I'd like to round off my bottom edge, and we've been rounding 2D, two-dimensional things for the moment, but we do have a tool. Bonzai has a tool for rounding 3D objects. And I'm going to just go ahead and grab the bottom face and round that off. I hope everyone can see this. I really don't want a circular round, I want a bevel, so I'm just going to switch that, and Bonzai immediately changes that to a bevel. Fit to screen again, and then I'm going to go ahead and scale this to the size that I need to match the other objects. Okay, let's say right about there. Now in this building we have, between this level and the main deck, a very complex mullion system, and drawing and placing all these mullions is a little beyond the scope of a short webinar here, but what can we do to explore the design of that without actually creating everything? And I'm going to show you my idea here of using NURBS in order to create some basic shapes that we might use later on as a guide for creating the actual mullions. I'm using the NURBS Loft tool again. I've just selected these two splines that I already created. Now I'm going to go back through in a minute and recreate these splines for you so you can see how that's done. I think it's important to do that. So I've got these two shapes essentially that I want to create. Well, how did I create these shapes? I'm going to go ahead and turn these off and do this part basically from scratch so that you can see how this is done. I'm going to switch to the bottom view, and then I'm going to get the handy dandy arc tool again. I'm going to use this lock to plane through first point feature, and I'm doing this because I want this to be in a certain location. So I've created my arc and I want to modify it, and I was using a tool to do that with a NURBS surface. I can also do that with an arc, and I'll just pull this out for now. Hopefully that should do it. Alright, there we go. Back on track here. Now I need to move this up to the bottom of my deck. Let's get the move tool out and get hold of this thing and move it up. Now the great thing is I can just click anywhere on the edge of my deck and it'll move that up. Now where do I get the lines from down here at the bottom? Well, actually I get them and I steal them, and I do this quite often as I model. I will take these lines from an object that I want to loft from and use the 2D shape tool to pull those lines off. And now I want to move this line up as well. And I can use the same technique to put that exactly where I want, except I really want to copy it because I need two edges to actually create, at least two edges to create a NURBS surface. So now I have my lines drawn that I pulled up before, and I can use these now to create my NURBS surfaces. So that is how that is done, and I've got my an extra base here stashed away to bring back. Well, since I'm not actually creating a mullion system down here, I do want to get the feeling of what that is. Well, how can I do that? What can I do? Well, I've created a mullion texture here that is sort of like jail bars, I guess. It's a mullion texture, and I'm going to take it and drag it over to the surface that I want it on. And you can see the great thing that Bonzai did there. It just mapped that image to that strangely shaped surface exactly like I would have imagined I wanted it there, and I didn't have to do anything. And Bonzai is very good about that. When you apply materials to your objects, it will figure out the best way to map it to each face so that you get a very nice mapping without having to do any work in order to do it. Well, let me go ahead and make a mirror copy here and copy that over to the other side. Now I want to show you a couple more really cool tools that I use all the time. One is the offset outline tool. So I'm going to take the offset outline tool and take this outline and make another copy of it so I can use the lines that I've already drawn to continue building my model. And now I'm going to take the reshape tool and bring up the next part of the building. And then I'm going to use the bulge tool to create concave sides. So maybe it shouldn't be the bulge tool. In this case, maybe it should be the diet tool. Now I want to use my magenta outline, my magenta automatic guide rather here, so I can make sure that I have a symmetrical concavity all the way around my object. And that magenta guide, as well as the green and red ones, are always there to help you when you're drawing things in bonsai. Now I need another copy of this object up here and smaller, so I'm going to do a trick here where I do this all in the same operation. I'm going to start off with an assistant. In this case, I need to have a guide, so I'm going to create a guide here that goes from the center straight up. Then I'm going to select my uniform scale tool, and I'm already on copy, and then I'm going to select that deck, and then I'm going to choose a point way up here in the air to use as my reference point for my scale copy. And you can see that I can drag that up and put that right into position. So I've created that deck. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this guide because I don't need it anymore. I've gone on ahead here and created more of the building that exists above this level, and we'll just go ahead and turn that on and then move forward. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the final mirroring of this outer shell, like so. So we're really getting there now. I can actually get rid of this line as well. And then I'm going to create finally the plume base. And I have already created a couple of shapes here to loft between, which we've seen already. So I'm just going to get those two shapes selected and do my NURBS loft. And there you have it. We have the complete building. I'm going to bring back my 3D print base. And this is the model that essentially was sent off to Z Corp. Now this section of the mullion, this mullion section underneath here, I actually did more work on and made those mullions and so forth when we sent the model off to Z Corp. Now I want to go ahead and show you the result. Here is the model before it was sent to Z Corp. We add a little bit of copy to the sides. And again, here's the model. This was the model we showed live at the AIA show a couple of weeks ago. So you can see it's great that you can make conceptual models and model very quickly and model smooth shapes with bonsai and get a model that's ready to go to the 3D printer. So you can take your model off to the next level. We go ahead and conclude this modeling demonstration and open up the floor for questions. These are just a few, of course, of the many features that are available to you in bonzai3d. As always, we want you to check the website for future webinars so that you can join those. Feel free to log out whenever you want. Type your questions into the box, and I will answer those questions, and have a nice day.